This training video is going to cover the use of automatic time cards in our payroll system. Time cards that are available electronically on our internal portal system, which is called myBay. And as you can see, this is my real time card. There's a couple of things to point out here. The payroll period is outlined in blue, and you can see that here, with an X icon which indicates the end of the payroll period. And then there's also a dollar sign on the Monday after the Sunday of the end of the payroll period. That symbol indicates that payroll is due into, or I should say your time cards are due into payroll by the end of close of business on that day. So the difference between these 2 days is this. Time cards have to be submitted by midnight on Sunday, where you see the X. What that means is they have to be finalized and submitted to your supervisor for approval. And then your supervisor has 1 day, 1 business day, which is this Monday, to submit the time card, which is approved at that point. You have finalized it, you have submitted it to your supervisor, and now it's actually being processed and approved, and then it gets sent off to payroll. And that ends at close of business on that Monday. All right, so there's a couple of things here. One, I want you to notice that this particular time card is for an exempt employee. An exempt employee has a payroll period defined by the blue boxes, but notice there's no time for each individual day. The way that exempt employees fill out their time card is by stating their hours worked as a total sum of the hours in that pay period. There's also a couple of settings here which allow you to take or record time that is outside of your normal time. So we have bereavement, closure, holiday, sick leave, and vacation. So you would actually put those hours in here if you were taking, let's say, an 8-hour sick leave day. You would put your 8 hours here, and then you would have minus 8 hours here. So you'd have 72 hours plus your 8 hours, which totals your 80 hours. We actually don't use this other hours, so you can just disregard that. And once you have actually entered time, so let's say that I'm going to enter in my 8 hours of sick time, and then I'm going to convert this to 72 hours so that when the sum happens and I sum the hours, I get my 80 hours. Notice when I said save hours, I get a new time card look. This is just the detail for that particular time card. So when we look at it here, you can see I've entered in my 80 hours for this entire pay period. It gives you your time card entry cutoff date, which is on Sunday the 6th, your time card entry submission deadline, which is close of business on the 7th, and this particular case would be just for the supervisors. Once I'm completely done with this time card, I would click here to finalize. Now I'm not going to do that quite yet because I'm not going to include my 8 hours here, so I'm going to change that. But there's a couple of things I want to point out before I do that. One is that you can enter comments here. So if there was a question that you needed to relay to your supervisor before you submit your time card, this would be the place to do that. Your supervisor is going to see that. But you can also submit comments here, which would then be read by payroll. So this is kind of an open-ended area, then you can just type whatever you want in here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my sick leave here, so I'm not going to have any sick leave, and I'm going to change this back to my 80 hours. I'm going to save, and now notice I still have my 80. My 80 is still reflected up here, and then I can actually click here to finalize. And when I click here to finalize, I get a pop-up window which says, once you have entered all of your hours for this pay period and you mark it final, that lets your manager or your supervisor know that your time card can be reviewed and submitted to payroll. However, marking your time card as final does make it read only, which means I cannot edit it after I have marked it final. So I'm not going to actually mark it final here. I'm going to leave this in case I take a vacation day or I have a sick day during this, the rest of this pay period. I also also want to point out one thing up here, which is this time card settings. If I click on that, it allows an exempt employee to enter the number of hours that they typically work so that they don't, it's a default setting, and it just means that you don't have to enter this, it's there by default. And you can set that up so that you see that every single pay period.